Do you feel something strange is happening in the world, but you can't explain exactly what? The rules of the game are changing, reality seems more confusing, and the truth, well, it has become a malleable concept. As distractions bombard us, a silent plan is underway, and no, this is not the theory of conspiracy. Artificial intelligence AI, digital surveillance, and social control are advancing faster than we can follow. What was once science fiction now shapes our present, and those who do not pay attention to the risk of losing their own freedom without even realizing it. Biblical prophecies warn of a system of global domination, and modern technology can be the key piece for it to come true. The New World Order does not need armies to gain territories, just control information, monitor behaviors, and define who may or may not participate in society. What looks like a simple digital identity can be the door to a definitive marking the so-called beast brand. What happens when your freedom depends on the approval of an algorithm? Does it seem something far? In China, social credit already decides if anyone can travel, work, or even buy food. Now imagine this expanded system to the whole world. If it bothers you, great. It means that you still value your autonomy. But beware, ignoring these signs can turn you into one more piece of this game. It's time to open your eyes and prepare. In today's video, we will connect the points between technology, politics, faith, and the future that awaits us. Are you ready to find out the truth? We live in times of invisible but deeply impactful changes. The social norms that have sustained civilizations for centuries are being reformulated before our eyes. What was once right or wrong is now subjective, shaped by carefully manipulated narratives. The influence of algorithms on social networks not only dictates what we see, but also what we think. Selective misinformation and censorship create reality bubbles where the truth becomes a flexible concept, adjusted according to the interests of those who hold technological control. Meanwhile, individual privacy and security become luxuries of the past. Digital surveillance is not only in cameras spread across the streets, but also in our pockets, online interactions, shopping, and even consumer habits. Each click, each search, each conversation generates valuable data, used to predict and influence behaviors. It is a cycle where technological domination advances without resistance, disguised as convenience and progress. But are we becoming freer or just more watched? The real danger lies in the fact that these changes do not occur suddenly, but gradually and imperceptibly. An adjustment here, a new policy there, and suddenly we see each other in a world where individual autonomy and freedom become an illusion. Governments and corporations no longer need to use force to control masses, just create a system where people accept voluntary submission. In the end, the question that remains is, are we living a transformation for good, or are we being taken to a future where freedom will be just a memory? The race for technological supremacy is far from just an innovation game. It is a fierce dispute for control of the future. On the one hand, the United States seeks to maintain its dominant position. On the other, China advances rapidly, investing billions in artificial intelligence (AI) to challenge the West. The DeepSeek One and other Chinese initiatives are already rivaling the best Western systems, triggering a new digital Cold War. But this war is not looked at with traditional weapons. Ammunition is now data, algorithms, and neural networks. With the advance of AI, governments and megacorporations vie for those who will have the greatest power to manipulate information and geopolitical influence. What was previously decided by political agreements and military alliances now depends on those who control global digital infrastructure. Digital surveillance intensifies, ensuring that superpowers know everything about their citizens and opponents. The result? A world where each decision can be tracked and where the influence of algorithms shape from financial markets to public opinion. And in this chessboard, we are just pawns. But what does this mean to the ordinary citizen? It means that our autonomy is increasingly conditioned to the clash between these giants. The manipulation of information already defines elections, regulates discourses, and censorship voices that oppose the dominant narrative. If AI is the new weapon of domination, the question we need to ask is, who is really in control? And, more importantly, what price will be to pay when this technology is used not to serve us, but to submit to us? The promise of artificial intelligence has always been to make the world more efficient, but in practice it has become the largest digital surveillance tool ever created. Today, governments and corporations monitor each step of the population, from financial transactions to political preferences. Tracking is no longer just physical, it is digital, psychological, and behavioral. Social networks, virtual assistants, and even domestic devices collect information all the time. The concept of privacy is disappearing, and many do not even realize that they are being observed. This social control system is not just to protect society, as the defenders say. In fact, he gives those who are in power the ability to influence elections, repress opponents, and impose an agenda without resistance. We have seen governments using IA to watch out of mass citizens, identify behavioral patterns, and even predict possible threats before they happen. Looks like science fiction? In China, this is already reality with social credit, which determines who can travel, work, and even access basic services. Now imagine this system implemented globally. The big problem is that all this happens under the pretext of security and progress. After all, who doesn't want to live in a safer and more efficient world? But what begins as protection can quickly become repression. When a global government has absolute control over people's digital identity, each individual will be at the mercy of a system that defines who can or may not participate in society. The question is no longer if this will happen, but when and who will be in charge when this reality is inevitable. Biblical prophecies have long warned of a global absolute control system. In the book of Revelation, the beast brand comes as a mandatory sign for people to buy, sell, and exist within the system. What if this brand was not physical but digital? Artificial intelligence is already being used to track behaviors, limit access, and even define who can participate in the economy. The question we need to ask is, would it be going to pave the way for this prophesied control? The New World Order will not have to impose this system by force. Technological domination will be accepted voluntarily, as it will be sold as a convenient solution. Digital identities, social credit systems, and digital currencies are already tested as alternatives to physical money. It sounds practical, but what happens when a government decides that you can't buy because your opinions are not aligned with official guidelines? Those who control the system will have the power to exclude anyone who does not obey. The danger is in the subtle transition from what is optional to what becomes mandatory. Today we use passwords and biometrics to access services. Tomorrow we may need a digital identity to exist. When everything is connected to a single system, there will be no more room for dissent. Revelation warns us about a future where submission will be required to continue living within the global system. AI can be the tool that will make it possible, and if we are not attentive, we will be delivering without realizing it. We live in an era where we believe we have more freedom than ever. But is that true? Social networks, financial applications, and even virtual assistants promise convenience, but at the same time shape our behaviors. The influence of algorithms decides what we see, what we consume, and even how we think. If AI can predict your desires even before you express them, are your choices really yours? The reality is that we are being guided without realizing it. Social control no longer needs physical imposition. It is sufficient that the manipulation of information is efficient enough to make us accept restrictions without question. Imagine a scenario where your social score determines your ability to access services, travel, or even open a bank account. Does it seem distant? In China, this already happens. When the system judges someone inconvenient, this person loses privileges. Now think, what if this model is adopted globally, disguised as progress? Freedom does not disappear at once, it is slowly corroded until there is nothing left. First, certain opinions are classified as dangerous, then financial transactions are monitored to avoid suspicious behaviors. In the end, the world will be subjected to a global government, where submission will be the only option to continue within the system. But there is a way out: knowledge. As long as we understand how these gears work, we can still resist and maintain our autonomy. The question is, will we notice in time? Technology has always promised to solve the problems of humanity, but are we starting to worship it as a new deity? Some of the biggest names in the industry already talk about AI as an almost omnipotent being, capable of making better decisions than any human being. What was once just a tool is now being treated as an infallible oracle, a system that all sees, knows everything, and controls everything. But relying blindly in technology can lead us to a dangerous path. The Bible warns us about false gods and mistakes that will deviate many from the truth. In the past, idols were gold statues. Today, they are algorithms and neural networks. When society begins to believe that AI can solve any problem from economy to ethical, we are essentially delivering our free will to a soulless system. The question is, who is programming this one, and what values are being inserted in it? The danger is not in technology itself, but in the way it is being used to define what is right or wrong. The role of religion in the digital age is crucial. If we lose the reference to spiritual principles, we will be at the mercy of a world where I was said, and a global government imposes its own morality. Faith has always been a refuge against oppressive systems, but now we are facing a new challenge, keeping our values in an era where technology threatens to replace God. The question is, are we using technology or being used by it? What would happen if your social score defined your freedom? It looks like a science fiction plot, but it is already in place in China. The social credit system monitors citizens' behavior and grants or restricts rights based on government guidelines. Did you post something inappropriate on social networks? Your grade falls. Did you attend a suspicious place? You can be forbidden to travel. Now imagine this globally expanded model, integrated with a mandatory digital identity. The excuse will always be the same: security, order, progress. However, the reality is that such a system transforms the population into hostages of absolute obedience. If a global government decides that certain beliefs or opinions are a threat, anyone who shares them can be excluded from the system. Without enough score, there is no access to transportation, credit, health, or even the right to buy food. This type of social control disguised as a collective benefit is the most efficient form of submission. The frightening is that this model is already being tested in the West in more subtle ways. Banks analyze digital history to define who can get credit. Social networks silence content that challenges certain narratives, and large corporations block services for those who do not follow certain standards. We are not moving towards a future of greater freedom. We are being led to an era of surveillance and invisible punishment. And the question is no longer if this system will be implemented, but when and how it will be accepted without resistance. Given this scenario of control and manipulation, what should be the posture of Christians? The Bible warns us about times when the world will be dominated by deception, and only those firm will actually resist. If artificial intelligence and technological domination are paving the way to a global government, Christians need to be spiritually prepared. This means seeking discernment, strengthening faith, and not being carried away by the illusion of convenience and security that this system offers. Resistance not only means rejecting invasive technologies, but also understanding how they work, not to fall into traps. Many are already being led to believe that the future belongs to those who are completely integrated into the system. But the Bible teaches the opposite. True power is not in accepting the world without question, but in remaining faithful to God's principles. The digital brand can only be the beginning of a larger scheme, and recognizing the signs is now essential for not being taken by surprise. In addition to preparing spiritually, Christians also play an active role in awareness. Alerting others, seeking alternatives that preserve individual autonomy and freedom, and position themselves against the advancement of totalitarian control are fundamental attitudes. Silence and compliance only strengthen those who want to impose this new system. Faith has always been a shield against oppressive regimes, and in this new technological world, this will be the largest weapon against submission to the global system. The signs are everywhere, but few are paying attention. While AI advances, digital surveillance intensifies, and information manipulation becomes more sophisticated, many still believe none of this will affect them. This is the greatest danger: the illusion that we are safe while the rules of the game are changed without our consent. Those who do not inform you now can wake up in a world where your freedom has already been compromised and no return. Ignoring these changes means passively accepting a system that can decide your future without choosing. A global digital identity is not just a modern document, but the key to a total control mechanism. Privacy is disappearing, and censorship becomes increasingly common. The problem is not just what is already happening, but the rapid pace that all this expands. If you think you still have time to react, think again. The only way to escape this trap is to seek knowledge and act now. Being silent is not an option, it is an invitation to be controlled. We need to question, alert, and strengthen those who have not yet seen what is happening. If we do not do this, we cannot claim surprise when the world we know completely transforms. The question is not if this will happen, but if we will be prepared when the time comes. The world is changing faster than ever, and most people don't even realize what is happening. Artificial intelligence, digital surveillance, and social control are becoming weapons of technological domination, endangering individual freedom. What seemed like a distant future is already knocking on our door. The question is, are you prepared for this? Or will you keep ignoring the signs, hoping that everything will be resolved alone? The Bible warned us of a global system that would require total submission, and it seems that this prophecy is coming true. These are no longer theories or exaggerated predictions. We are seeing this happen. The manipulation of information, the censorship disguised as combating misinformation, the creation of a digital global government. Everything points to a scenario where those who do not conform will be marginalized. Are you willing to lose your autonomy without a fight? If you got here, it has already given the first step. Open your eyes. Now, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Share this video with those who have not yet noticed the severity of the situation. Subscribe to the channel, enable notifications, and be aware of the next content. Time is running out, and ignoring the signs will not be an option for much longer.